Welcome to Grim Chronicles, where we tear away the polished veneer of history to expose the raw, haunting truths that linger in its shadows. Today, we're stepping into the gilded halls of Versailles, into the world of a man who called himself the Sun King, Louis XIV of France. This was a monarch who claimed to be God's chosen, a ruler whose very presence was said to light up the world like the sun itself. But in the summer of 1715, as his life drew to a close, Louis became something far more terrifying than any king could ever be. A living, decaying reminder that even the mightiest among us are nothing but flesh and bone, crumbling under the relentless grip of mortality. This isn't just the story of a king's death. It's the collapse of an entire worldview, a grotesque spectacle that the court of Versailles fought desperately to hide. So, settle in, dim the lights, and let's walk together through the terrifying final days of Louis XIV, where the radiance of the Sun King faded into something unspeakably grim. Imagine yourself in 1715, standing in the opulent corridors of Versailles. For 72 years, Louis XIV has ruled France with an iron fist cloaked in golden silk. He's transformed a fractured, medieval kingdom into the most powerful nation in Europe, a land where his will shaped everything from the battlefield to the banquet hall. He built this palace, a glittering monument to his glory, where every mirror, every chandelier, every blade of grass in the gardens was designed to reflect his divine majesty. Courtiers from across the continent flocked here, tripping over themselves to catch a glimpse of the man who claimed to be God's representative on earth. But now, at 76 years old, Louis is the last of his kind. He's outlived his son, his grandson, most of his allies, and even his enemies. He stands alone, a relic of an age that's slipping away, while the world he built begins to fray at the edges. France in 1715 is not the dazzling kingdom of Louis's youth. Decades of wars, glorious in their victories, ruinous in their costs, have drained the royal treasury until it's little more than a hollow chest. Harsh winters have swept through the countryside, leaving fields barren and peasants starving. The once vibrant court at Versailles, the envy of every European monarch, feels like a fading theater. Aging nobles perform rituals that have lost their meaning, bowing and scraping before a king who seems more like a museum piece than a ruler. The elaborate dances, the endless ceremonies, the whispered flattery, it's all starting to feel like a play no one believes in anymore. And yet, Louis refuses to see it. He clings to the myth of his own invincibility, rising each morning for the lever, that sacred ritual where nobles gather to watch him dress, as if his very act of putting on a wig could hold the kingdom together. Every evening he holds court, receiving ambassadors and petitioners with the same imperious wave of his hand, as if his word still carries the weight it did decades ago. But the truth is creeping in, like a shadow across a gilded room. Louis's power isn't what it used to be. His ministers make the real decisions now, shuffling papers and policies while the king plays his part. His generals operate with a freedom he no longer controls, and the nobles, once eager for his favor, now whisper about what happens when the old king finally dies. They're not just waiting for a new ruler, they're waiting for a new world. Louis, though, is blind to it or chooses to be. He sticks to his rigid schedule, striding through Versailles' endless halls, his walking stick clicking against the marble floors. The Sun King is setting, but he refuses to admit that night is falling. It's a strange, almost tragic image. A man who's spent his life commanding the stage, unaware that the audience is already slipping out the door. That summer, something changes. You can feel it in the air, a subtle shift that sends a chill through the courtiers who know him best. Louis, the man who once towered over every room, seems smaller. His broad shoulders, always accentuated by tailored robes, are starting to slump. The magnificent garments that once made him look like a god now hang loosely, as if they're swallowing him up. His appetite, legendary for its excess, this is a man who could devour a feast meant for a dozen, starts to fade. The grand court dinners, once a dazzling display of royal abundance with tables groaning under pheasant, pastries, and wine, turn uncomfortable. Picture it. The long dining hall, lit by flickering candles, the air heavy with expectation, while the king picks listlessly at his plate. His fork barely touches the food, his eyes distant, as courtiers exchange uneasy glances, unsure whether to pretend everything's fine. It's not just his body either. Louis's mind, once sharp enough to outmaneuver diplomats and generals, is slipping. He stares into space during meetings, his thoughts drifting. He repeats himself in conversations, his voice trailing off as if he's chasing a memory he can't quite grasp. The court physicians, used to treating minor ailments or ceremonial complaints, are starting to panic. They're trained to handle colds, fevers, the occasional upset stomach. Nothing like this. They whisper among themselves about calling in specialists from Paris. But no one dares suggest to the king that his condition might be serious. After all, this is Louis XIV, the man who built an empire on the myth of his own divinity. Fatigue is temporary. Gods don't get sick. Or so they tell themselves, hoping the problem will vanish like a bad dream. Then, in late July, the first real sign of trouble appears. Louis starts complaining of pain in his left leg. Sharp, persistent, unlike anything he's felt before. At first, he dismisses it, chalking it up to too much walking during his endless court ceremonies. His doctors agree, nodding sagely as they prescribe the usual remedies. Bloodletting, herbal poultices, a purge or two to balance the humors. These are the tools of 18th century medicine, crude but trusted, passed down through generations of physicians who swore by their efficacy. Except this time, they don't work. The pain doesn't fade. It grows, a constant throb that gnaws at the king's resolve. By early August, the pain is unbearable. Louis, who spent his life projecting strength, can barely walk. His walking stick, once a prop of elegance, is now a necessity, and even then, his valet has to hover close, ready to catch him if he stumbles. The grand halls of Versailles, designed to showcase his majesty, become a gauntlet. Every step is agony, every movement a reminder that something is deeply wrong. But Louis refuses to yield. He limps through the lever, forces himself to stand for audiences, his face a mask of royal composure even as his body betrays him. The courtiers see it now, the stoop in his shoulders, the pallor beneath the layers of rouge his valets apply each morning. His once commanding presence is fading, his frame shrinking before their eyes. And then there's the smell. It's faint at first, a sour note beneath the clouds of lavender and musk that follow the king everywhere. The servants catch it when they change his stockings, the valets when they lean close to adjust his wig. It's not just age or illness. It's something darker, something unnatural. By mid-August, the truth is undeniable. The pain in Louis's leg has evolved into something monstrous. The skin around his calf isn't just bruised. It's darkening, mottling into shades of purple and black, like fruit left too long in the sun. The smell, once subtle, is now overpowering, a sickly sweet rot that clings to the air like a curse. Servants start requesting transfers, unable to stomach the task of dressing the king. Those who stay do so out of loyalty or fear, their faces pale as they perform their duties. Dr. Guy Crescent Fagan, the king's chief physician, is at a loss. He's tried everything. Bloodletting until Louis's veins are nearly dry, poultices that do nothing but irritate the ruined flesh. He calls in colleagues from Paris, but they're just as baffled, their learned debates dissolving into helpless shrugs. They whisper the word gangrene, a term that carries the weight of a death sentence in 1715. It's not just a disease. It's a betrayal, a violation of everything Louis stood for. His body, once a canvas for royal propaganda, is now a canvas for decay. The Sun King, the man who claimed to be God's light on earth, is rotting while he's still alive. The horror deepens as August draws to a close, and the king's condition becomes a nightmare that engulfs the entire court. The gangrene isn't just a patch on Louis's leg anymore. It's a spreading plague, turning his flesh into a blackened, weeping mass that defies description. The smell is no longer just unpleasant. It's invasive, a cloying stench that seeps into every corner of the royal apartments. Even the thick clouds of incense and perfume, burned constantly to mask it, are no match for the odor of decay. Servants, trained to maintain perfect composure, now flinch as they approach the king's bed, some pressing perfumed handkerchiefs to their faces to keep from gagging. Others, less able to bear it, beg for reassignment, claiming sudden fevers or family emergencies to escape the royal chambers. The ones who stay are haunted, their eyes hollow as they perform tasks that no amount of training could prepare them for. The king's leg, once a symbol of his vitality, is now unrecognizable, a grotesque parody of the physique he once flaunted. The elaborate stockings, the embroidered breeches, the trappings of majesty. They're nothing but a costume now, hiding a truth too awful to face. Louis, though, clings to his role with a stubbornness that's both tragic and terrifying. He's spent his life perfecting the part of the Sun King, and even now, with his body falling apart, he refuses to step off the stage. He demands the lever continue, that daily ritual where nobles gather to watch him dress, as if the act of putting on a robe could restore his divine aura. Picture the scene. A room full of courtiers, their faces tight with forced reverence, while valets struggle to drape royal garments over a frame that's collapsing into itself. Louis tries to stand, his walking stick trembling in his hand, his valet hovering to catch him if he falls. He holds court, though the audiences grow shorter, the attendees fewer. No one wants to be there, not really. They've seen the truth beneath the powder and rouge, the stooped posture, the graying skin, the eyes that don't quite focus. The smell follows him everywhere, a constant reminder that the man they've worshipped is rotting before their eyes. It's a performance no one believes in anymore, least of all Louis, but he keeps going, as if stopping would mean admitting defeat. The physicians are desperate now, their confidence shattered. Dr. Fagan, who's built his career on keeping the king healthy, is out of his depth. He's bled Louis until there's little left to drain, applied poultices that only make the wounds angrier. The experts from Paris offer no answers, their learned theories crumbling in the face of a disease they can't understand. They whisper about gangrene, but saying it aloud feels like a betrayal, as if naming the monster will make it real. They suggest amputation, a brutal, barbaric idea in 1715, with no anesthesia and crude tools that would likely kill the king faster than the disease. Louis refuses at first, perhaps out of pride, perhaps out of fear that mutilation would strip away the last vestiges of his royal image. Instead, the doctors turn to relics and prayers, hoping divine intervention might succeed where their medicine has failed. The court chaplain arranges masses, brings holy artifacts to press against the king's ruined flesh, but the contrast is jarring. A sacred relic laid on a leg that's already half dead, the smell of decay mingling with the scent of incense. The courtiers are starting to break under the strain. These are people who've built their lives around the idea of Louis as God's chosen, a figure above mortal flaws. Now they're watching their god-king decompose, and it's not just a physical horror, it's a metaphysical crisis. The divine right of kings, the bedrock of their world, is crumbling before their eyes. Some start having nightmares, waking in a cold sweat with the smell of the king's chambers still in their noses. Others whisper in the corridors, their voices low, questioning whether this could be punishment. Louis's reign wasn't without sin. Wars that cost thousands of lives, taxes that crushed the poor, a court that demanded constant worship. If God chose him, why is he letting this happen? The question hangs in the air, unanswered, as the king's condition worsens, pulling the entire court into a spiral of dread and doubt. The servants face the worst of it, caught in an impossible bind. Their duty demands they tend to the king's personal needs, changing his linens, dressing his wounds, cleaning a body that's no longer fully human. But how do you serve a king whose flesh is falling apart? Many can't bear it. Some fake illnesses to escape, others simply stop showing up, risking disgrace to avoid the horror. Those who stay do so out of loyalty or desperation, but you can see it in their faces, they're haunted. They've spent their lives believing Louis was divine. a figure above the frailties of ordinary men. Now they're wiping pus from his sores, breathing in the stench of his decay, and it's breaking them. It's not just a physical ordeal. It's a shattering of their entire worldview. If the Sun King can rot like this, what does that say about the order of the world? The psychological toll is immense, a wound that will linger long after the king is gone. Louis himself isn't blind to what's happening, though he tries to be. He spent 7 decades believing he's untouchable, chosen by God to rule an empire. Now, as the pain consumes him and the smell of his own body sickens even him, he's forced to confront the unthinkable. He's mortal. He's not a god. He's just a man, and a dying one at that. In his moments of clarity, he clings to his routines, ordering his valets to dress him in his finest robes, as if the right outfit could hide the truth. But in the quiet of his bedchamber, staring at the ornate ceiling of Versailles, you can imagine him grappling with the weight of it all. Is this divine punishment, a test, or simply the cruel reality of human existence? The man who built his reign on ceremony and control is losing both, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. As September dawns, the horror reaches its peak, a nightmare that engulfs everyone at Versailles. The gangrene isn't just in Louis's leg anymore. It's spreading, claiming his body piece by piece. His skin, once powdered to perfection, is now a patchwork of gray and black, the infection eating away at flesh that once symbolized royal vitality. His internal organs are failing, producing new smells and fluids that make even the most seasoned servants recoil. His teeth, meticulously cared for throughout his reign, are rotting, falling out one by one, his mouth a decaying cavern. His breath, once sweetened with the finest perfumes, is now so foul that no one can stand close. The royal chambers, the heart of French power, have become a charnel house, the air so thick with decay that it clings to everything. Clothes, hair, nightmares. Servants report smelling it from 3 rooms away, a stench that no amount of burning herbs or incense can erase. They change the king's bedding multiple times a day, not out of ceremony but necessity, the linens soaked with fluids that defy description, staining the royal crest with something far uglier than blood. Louis's mental state is as broken as his body. He drifts in and out of consciousness, his moments of clarity fleeting and fragile. When he's lucid, he insists on abbreviated versions of his ceremonies, as if a brief lever or a shortened audience can restore what's been lost. But most of the time, he's elsewhere, lost in a fog of his own making. He talks to ghosts, courtiers long dead, relatives from decades past, their faces vivid in his fading mind. He issues commands to empty rooms, answers questions no one asked, his voice a weak echo of its former strength. The royal chambers, once a stage for his grandeur, are now a haunted space, the king's words mingling with the stench of decay. For the courtiers, it's another layer of dread. They're not just watching their king die, they're watching him unravel, his mind as shattered as his body. The religious rituals, meant to comfort, only deepen the unease. Louis has spent his life as God's representative, his court a temple to his divinity. Now, as his body turns against him, some wonder if this is divine judgment. The court chaplain struggles to offer solace, his words hollow against the reality of a king who's more corpse than monarch. The practical challenges are almost absurd in their horror. Changing the king's bedding, once a ceremonial act performed with reverence, is now a grim necessity, carried out with witnesses to maintain protocol while everyone tries not to retch. The dining rituals, once a dazzling display of abundance, are now grotesque. Louis can't chew solid food. His rotting mouth makes it impossible. Servants feed him broth through straws, standing as far back as they can to avoid his breath. The golden plates, the crystal goblets, they're props in a play no one wants to watch, a mockery of the feasts that once defined Versailles. The psychological toll on the palace staff is crushing. These are people who've devoted their lives to Louis, believing him to be more than human. Now they're cleaning his wounds, breathing his decay, and it's breaking them. Some leave unable to reconcile the myth with the reality. Others stay, their loyalty a kind of punishment, their faces pale as they perform tasks that will haunt them for years. The doctors, led by Dr. Fagin, are out of options. They've exhausted every remedy in their arsenal. Bloodletting, poultices, prayers. Now, they turn to measures that sound like something out of a grim fairy tale. They apply animal parts to the king's wounds, believing the life force of healthy creatures might somehow help. They try burning the infected tissue with hot irons, a procedure so agonizing that Louis's screams echo through the palace, a sound no one will forget. They even wrap his leg in the skins of freshly killed animals, hoping the warmth might spark healing. None of it works. The gangrene marches on, claiming more of the king's body each day. Amputation, the last resort, is finally considered, but it's too late. The infection has spread too far. The procedure, even if attempted, would be a death sentence, and Louis knows it. In his clearer moments, he begs for relief, first for the amputation he once refused, then for anything to ease the pain. But 18th century medicine has nothing to offer, only crude tools and prayers that feel increasingly empty. The international implications are starting to ripple outward. Foreign ambassadors, used to negotiating with a commanding monarch, now face a king who's barely coherent. Meetings are tense, the air heavy with the smell of death. Some diplomats cancel their visits, whispering about the king's condition. Word spreads beyond Versailles, and neighboring kingdoms start planning for the chaos that will follow Louis's death. His reign has shaped Europe, but now his decline is reshaping it again. A grim reminder that even the mightiest fall. The court chaplain, tasked with upholding the king's divine image, is faltering. The masses, the relics, the prayers, their rituals performed in a void. Some courtiers whisper of divine punishment, the idea gaining traction as Louis's suffering grows. If he's God's chosen, why is he enduring this? The question is a wound, festering as surely as the king's body, and it's tearing at the heart of the court. On September 1st, 1715, the end comes at last. As dawn filters through the windows of Versailles, Louis XIV takes his final breath, a gasp that witnesses describe as relief, not resignation. His death isn't the peaceful passing of a beloved monarch. It's an escape from suffering so intense, it's almost unimaginable. But the horror doesn't end with his last breath. The king's body, ravaged by weeks of gangrene, is a nightmare for the embalmers tasked with preparing it for the state funeral. Their job is to preserve the royal corpse, to present Louis as the eternal Sun King one last time. But when they open his body, they find a horror beyond their training. His organs have liquefied, his intestines a putrid mass that can't be preserved according to tradition. His heart, meant to be a sacred relic, is blackened, crumbling at the touch. The smell is so overwhelming that embalmers faint, their tools useless against a body already half dissolved. They work through the night, struggling to create some semblance of a preserved corpse, but it's a losing battle. The coffin, crafted from the finest materials and adorned with the symbols of Louis's reign, can't contain the reality. His body has swollen, gases building up inside, forcing the embalmers to seal the casket quickly to trap the stench and prevent an explosion of decay during the funeral. The state funeral itself is a spectacle, one of the grandest in French history. Thousands line the route from Versailles to Saint-Denis, the royal tomb, their faces a mix of mourning and curiosity. Music swells, decorations gleam, speeches drone on about the Sun King's greatness. But those closest to the coffin know the truth. Even sealed, it emits the smell of decay, a grim reminder of the king's final weeks. Pallbearers gag. Priests rush their blessings, everyone pretending the ceremony is what it's meant to be. A celebration of a glorious reign, not a cover for a grotesque reality. The international reaction is a tangle of respect and morbid fascination. Official statements mourn a great monarch, but private letters trade gruesome details. His rotting leg, his fading mind, the smell that defined his final days. The image Louis spent decades crafting, divine, untouchable, is tainted forever. For the French, his death is more than a succession. It's the end of an era, a shattering of the myth that held the monarchy together. The Sun King, who seemed immortal, was revealed to be as frail as any peasant. The divine right of kings, the bedrock of his rule, is damaged by the graphic proof of his mortality, a wound that will linger in the minds of those who witnessed it. The medical community is left reeling. Dr. Fagan and his colleagues face scrutiny, their methods, bloodletting, poultices, relics, exposed as useless against a disease like gangrene. Louis's death sparks debates that will echo for decades, pushing physicians to question traditions and seek better answers. The servants and courtiers who witnessed his decline carry scars no one sees. Nightmares haunt them, the smell and sight of the king's decay burned into their memories. Some leave royal service, unable to face Versailles halls, their faith in the monarchy shattered. The palace itself is renovated, new paint and furnishings meant to erase the past. But servants swear they can still smell it, a faint whiff of death in the stones, as if the very walls have absorbed the horror. The political fallout is profound. Louis's grotesque death undermines the monarchy's divine aura, making it harder for future kings to wield absolute power. Philosophers and theologians grapple with the implications. If God's chosen can die like this, what does it say about divine favor? The questions fuel intellectual movements that will challenge authority for centuries, planting seeds of doubt that will grow into revolutions. Medically, Louis's case becomes a grim lesson, his symptoms preserved in records that help future doctors understand gangrene and infection. Culturally, his death resonates across Europe, a symbol of mortality's reach. Artists and writers seize on it, the rotting king a metaphor for the futility of power, a reminder that no throne can shield you from the grave. In the end, Louis XIV's death is his true legacy. Not his wars, not his palace, but the horrifying reality of his final days. The Sun King, who controlled his image with ruthless precision, is remembered as much for his decay as his glory. His story is a stark reminder that no one, not even a king, escapes the grip of mortality. Here on Grim Chronicles, we've walked through that grim truth, and I hope it's left you as haunted as it's left me. If this story shook you, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next dive into history's shadows. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think about Louis's fall, or what dark tale you want us to explore next. Stay curious, stay brave, and I'll see you in the next one.